David, it's Neil. Call me back. I want to record you. I have some...
Hello folks, if you're in the United States or Canada or anywhere in the world, you've heard a story about 9/11. It's been told by the major media, and frankly that story is a dog. As you can see, right here, this looks like a 757 that hit the Pentagon. But is it or isn't? Let's investigate. Well, you may believe that because you've been told that, but which one's a 757? The one you've been told or the one that you couldn't see? And also, regardless of what hit the Pentagon, Wedge 1, Captain Gerald DeCanto's office, is it possible that this airplane could fly the maneuver that it was alleged to have been flying on that day? According to the official transcript of the incident, the three-dimensional flight path of the object that hit the Pentagon was somewhat like this. It flew over the Pentagon at 7,000 feet. Thereupon, it started a right wing down, very nose-low descent at 540 miles an hour, rolled out just inside the grassy knoll, descended to 15 feet, went between four wooden reels, and struck the Pentagon here. And that location on the Pentagon was the Naval Command Center, where Captain Gerald DeCanto was on the phone inside his office at the Naval Command Center when whatever the object was flew into his office and killed him. Gerald DeCanto was reaching for the phone to call one of his superiors requesting to engage the target that was attacking the Pentagon because they had broken the rules of engagement on that day. Gerald DeCanto was reaching for the phone to call one of his superiors requesting to engage the target that was attacking the Pentagon because they had broken the rules of engagement on that day. There were multiple air defense exercises going on, and the rules of engagement called for the limitation of the threatening aircraft, which would have been a member of the Red Air Team. When it got to 3 minutes of the Pentagon, it was supposed to abort its attack and knock off the fight. But that's not what happened on that day. When the flying object got to 25 miles, it pressed the attack. Captain Gerald DeCanto determined that there was a double cross going on, and Gerald DeCanto tried to reach somebody in authority to allow him to launch defensive weapons.
At the tone, please record your...
June 1st and 2nd, 2001, Amalgam Fargo, U.S. military war game with Canadian intelligence. This is the dry run in the summer before 9/11 to show off and test the anti-hijack system being sold to the United States. Amalgam Fargo 01 was an air defense exercise created intellectually in Canada and foisted upon the U.S. Air Force and Department of Defense. It presumed that Osama bin Laden may use drones and cruise missiles to attack high-value targets in the United States of America, and it suggested that F-15s and F-16s from the U.S. Air Force would be the counters to those types of attacks. Slide 2 shows NORAD, which is North American Air Defense Fighters, and their exercise charter. Most of it's pretty standard, but what caught my attention on this page is that perceived is in big letters and a different color than the rest of it. And I think it's the intention of the three-card Monte operators behind Amalgam Fargo to put in our minds that the threats are Osama bin Laden, cruise missiles, and drones. The Canadian intelligence folks that put together this confusing exercise, Amalgam Fargo, intentionally inserted a gray area here. The gray area that was intentionally created in the planning for Amalgam Fargo would be used with great effect on the later Global Guardian of 9/11. It always introduced questions as to who is responsible for what and who is in charge of putting the response into motion. Designers, the perpetrators of 9/11, intentionally made it very easy for people to be confused, and this slide in front of you shows the confusion. There's multiple poor choices made, and no one is going to be responsible because the responsibility will be distributed across a lot of bad choices, and there will be nobody in charge. During the Amalgam Virgo war game of June 1 and 2 of 2001, the routine called for all of U.S. airspace to come completely under the command of the former attacking Red Team, that is to say, Canadian intelligence and their Air Force, here shown as a CF-18. For 24 hours, the Canadian attackers would suddenly switch sides, and the U.S. Air Force would completely stand down and surrender protection of the U.S. to NATO and the Canadian air teams and their anti-hijacking formula. This scenario was replayed again with even greater complication and confusion during the multiple war games in play on the morning of 9/11, again with Canadian forces and NATO alone in controlling skies over America during the Global Guardian war games of September 11th. It is known that on the morning of 9/11, as many as 20 independent war game scenarios were being played out, with the U.S. Air Force grounded during the Canadian Blue Air time. It was during this time that the Twin Towers were struck, the Pentagon was struck, and there was an attempt to fly a plane into the Capitol, aborted over the skies of Pennsylvania as Flight 93 was vaporized into nothingness that morning.